live. So first of all, I'm grateful that everyone that's here is here. And Abby, welcome. So if you can hear us, give us a thumbs up in the chat. I just want to make sure that you can hear us. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is being world class. And that when we talk about world class, it's really about operating your company as a world class. And so, but before we do that, my name is Dean Van Dyke. I have Diane, who is assisting me with the chat this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world. So she'll be monitoring the chat. I greatly appreciate that. We do have a bonus for you at the end, so stay till the end for that bonus. But before we get moving and talking about those benefits, I'd love to hear from you. Introduce yourself, your business, and what you expect to get out of this today. We'll start with you, Jayden.
All right. Hi, I'm Jayden. I'm the CEO and founder of Jasper Consultancy. We are an executive search and human capital consulting firm. So we go into any company Series A and later and place their executives, anything director level and above, and also consult on human capital matters. What I'm hoping to get out of this, I'm very data driven. I love KPIs and setting aggressive and yet attainable KPIs. So really excited to just dive in and learn more and get new insights and perspectives.
Thanks, Jayden. And it's great to meet you again, although we didn't get to meet at the event in Kirkland. So, Richard.
Hey there. My name is Richard Delzer. I'm a CPA over at Brady & Company CPAs. We're over in Edmonds. I've been a CPA for the last 6 years or so. What we do, we focus a lot on tax and consultancy. And for the most part, we tackle anything accounting related. What we do, let's see, what else can I say? For the most part, what I'm hoping to get out of this is just kind of hang out, hopefully learn some things that I can bring to value to my clientele, and just say hi. So thanks.
Great to see you again, Richard. Abby.
Hi, Abby, with Lamb Contracting. We're a small general contracting company in Washington. We do state, federal, and commercial projects. So that's just a little bit about us.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you're enjoying the weather. Are you in the Puget Sound area?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see some sun for a little bit. And I mean, it was a little foggy this morning, but I mean, we have a project right on the pier so it's pretty nice right now.
Nice. Yeah, it's been beautiful here, fortunately.
Yes.
All right, so let's jump into it. First, I want to talk about, what are those benefits? And really with those benefits, one of the key things that, we drive and I work with my clients on in terms of is really getting the time back for themselves. Now, how do we do that? Well, we actually establish a rhythm, and I don't have my t-shirt on that says focus. I was going to wear that, but unfortunately I couldn't find it this morning. But it's really focused on the 6 core KPIs that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But what do those core KPIs achieve for you? And it's really about faster growth. Everyone's looking for growth, preferably not hockey stick type growth, because I've worked with clients that have gotten that, federal or state contract that hockey sticked and didn't ultimately weren't able to, achieve what they wanted to with that contract. So it took a long time to ramp. Cheaper money. I'm not sure if Richard would agree, but interest rates right now are kind of high. And it is, the cost of capital is expensive. Higher valuation, we'll talk about that in the case study that I have. And then also more profit. I would assume most of us on this call love more profit. If you don't, go ahead and raise your hand. And then increased retention. Now that is in today's environment, and leading out in, just the last few years, retaining great team members has been a challenge. Finding great team members has even been a bigger challenge. One of my clients right now, we're working on a plan to bring in additional developers. And the unfortunate thing is there's a lot of developers out there, but it's having that right skill set and finding that right skill set. They have a very unique skill set that's needed. So if you can retain them, all the better. So with that, let's jump into the 6 core KPIs because I really want to make this interactive. And if you have any questions as we're going, raise your hand, throw it in the chat. Diane will put the brakes on me and stop me if we need to answer that question. But when I work with a client, and I'm going through this right now with one of my clients in Portland, we establish at the L1, and the system Catapult itself has 3 different tiers: L1, L2, and L3. And the L1 is created based on your industry. So as you go through the setup, you select your industry, and then it creates your 6 core KPIs as well as the U driver, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Those 6 core items, employee engagement. One of the things, having led teams across the globe, that it was always a challenge is really keeping the pulse of my team and how they're doing. What's impacting them, and that was a challenge, and I did lose some key team members as a result of that. However, working with monitoring employee engagement, you can help to retain those. Another key factor is EBITDA or burn. Doesn't sound like we have any startups on the phone, but with startups, and I've worked with startups as well, burning through that cash, your runway. Do you understand what that runway is? And how quickly are you burning through it? Revenue. And I know I'm going quickly through these, so please feel free to stop me. But when we look at revenue, what we're looking at is top line growth. We're looking at it as a percentage based on the industry. And so it's a little bit different at the C level when we're talking about these KPIs. Revenue churn. Now, the case study of the client that I'm going to talk about, specifically from a revenue churn and concentration perspective, can be very devastating to a company. Churn we look at in terms of revenue. Now, why do you think we look at it in terms of revenue versus I have 10 customers, I lose 1, I got 9? Anyone? So we use revenue, and the case study is going to drive this home a little bit more. But say you have 5 clients, 2 of those clients are in your $1 million in revenue, but 2 of those clients are $500,000 worth of your revenue, and you lose both clients. What does that do to your company? Huge impact. Richard's not going to be happy doing your books with that. So, all right. So then when we look at pipeline, we look at pipeline a little bit different, and there's a formula behind it that we use. I can get into the math if you'd like, but I'll probably bore you to death. But we look at things a little bit different. And then revenue concentration, just jumped into that. This is typically the Achilles heel. We recommend 20%. No customer has greater than 20% of your revenue. So let's talk about the case study. Now, I went back and forth. I was going to have a car driving over a cliff here.
Can I interrupt real quick? Are you going to share the deck with people afterwards?
I'll share a PDF of it.
Yeah.
So
thanks.
You bet. So I was going to go just 2 different ways: car driving off a cliff, or just show you the graphic of a world-class metric being at 20% from a revenue concentration perspective. So before this client came to us, they were looking to exit. It's a $100 million company, and they were going to sell it to the employees with an ESOP. When the bank came back and gave them the news, they learned that it was worth $35 million less than what they'd originally thought. They still had that $100 million in revenue. However, that one client was 35% of that overall revenue. So they had to go back. And when they came to us, they, over the course of 3 years, we got them down to that world-class metric of 20%. And they were eventually able to exit even with a higher valuation. But because they weren't keeping their eye on the ball in terms of revenue concentration, it impacted the timing of when they wanted to exit. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm ready to exit, I'm not really sure I want to stay around for another 3 years, but they did, and they worked with us, and we were able to achieve that 20%. So in the client that was $35 million of their revenue, you probably have heard of them and seen the green things that they produce. So it wasn't like they were going to pull their business, but still, you don't want to have any revenue or any client in excess of 20%. So what other questions do you have? This is where it becomes interactive. So with the 6 that we just talked about, what I really want to learn, Jayden, Richard, and Abby, is how are you currently tracking? If you are, and if you're not, that's okay. How are you tracking your pipeline? How are you looking at churn? Richard, I'm sure at tax time people are banging down your door, so you wish there was some churn. But how do you look at that?
Sure. For us, it's kind of when the deadlines come up. So, for instance, we've got just as an example, 600 clients or so. And then what we end up doing is we kind of go through a forced reconciliation of who's doing what. Just, have we heard from this person? Did they go somewhere else? Are they, showing up at the last minute? That kind of thing. So we stay pretty connected with who's doing what and where. We certainly don't have anything in the lines of one client or so being 25 or 30%. So, in that case, it's just a matter of what our business constitutes. It's like a force we have to check up on. So that's kind of what we're saying. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
are you guys? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jayden. No, I'll remember my question. Trust me.
Oh, I was just going to say, honestly, we have software that tracks it. So, of course, we have contract dates on the consulting side. On the executive search side, typically we give a rough estimated timeline of when it will take and hold our talent acquisition professionals accountable to it. But at the end of the day, if they cut the contract early for some reason, which I've never had happen, thank goodness, then, of course, that would go into that. Or if they don't renew, we track that as well, because that's, of course, always the goal. In ours, it may take 2 years before they need another executive again and renew it. So it's a hard metric to track accurately to say these guys either renewed or they didn't. But usually we can track it by, are we still in conversation with them? Are we still on their preferred vendors list? Is there business to be had we missed out on, or is there just no business to be had?
Interesting. So do you, or either, or Abby, and I'll go to you in a second, but I want to just throw this question out to everybody. Are any of you solely focused within a few different verticals, or is it, so are any of you focused in any specific vertical, such as healthcare, nonprofits? Jayden, do you recruit across the spectrum of industries?
Yeah, so I like to say I'm in the technology industry. However, it can be broad. It can include healthcare technology, biotech, medical device technology, can include green energy tech, fintech, martech. I like to say if there's a tech when you abbreviate it, we cover it. So it's a vertical, but it's a wide vertical.
How about you, Richard?
Yeah, we see so much. We're not your atypical firm that focuses only on dentists. We see everything along the way, from real estate to healthcare to Washington state work to business tax returns, federal, individual returns. So we don't slow down in the off season. We kind of go year round. So that's not normal in our industry. So it's always busy around here.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I come into work and I don't know what I'm doing that week, and it's pretty fun. So
it kind of sounds like when I was in law enforcement. Every day was a new day.
Yeah.
Abby, does your company primarily focus on state or local, state, and federal contracts?
No. So right now our split is about 20% federal with focus on military, and it's different military. So JBLM, Keyport, Bangor. Then our state, it varies from city to city, and we're potentially going to work with a correctional institute or institution. And then we have diverse commercial side, so like the UW, some hospitals, and some warehousing. And we kind of did that split for a couple reasons. Just, you never know where the money is going to dry up, especially with, potential impending recessions. So, and I've noticed that a lot of contracting companies don't do that, which doesn't make sense. I mean, each division has different language, but you just have to take the time to learn that language. That's what I've found.
Agreed. You're one of the rare contractors that I've talked to that has a diversified revenue mix. So congrats.
Thank you.
That's a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you never know when the federal, if they don't pass the budget, you're not going to get paid, unfortunately. So when you guys look at your, so from a churn, so Jayden, you had mentioned that you can tell if they don't renew, correct? Is that what I heard?
It's harder to tell if they're not going to renew because it's not a month to month contract's going to expire. It's a per search basis. On the consulting side, yes, we usually lay out a project and it's easy to say, okay, it's ending. Are they going to continue it? What does that look like? But when it comes to executive searches, once we find them, I mean, there's no need to continue unless they have more. So if they don't have more right now, how do we know if they'll come back to us later or not? That's what kind of throws the complication in there.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. So so let's jump to growth. Now, Abby, even with there's still a boom in construction in this area. Are you guys from a growth rate continuing to grow, and how are you tracking that?
We are growing. I'm trying to slow down the growth because there's a lot of demand and we've made a good name for ourselves, but it's, obviously cash flow is king, and that's been the biggest challenge. It's, not a lot of banks want to work with a newish kind of construction company. We're about to hit our 4th year, so we're getting some momentum in that side, but it's still, there's a lot of opportunity for what we do and just not a lot of partners. So.
Makes sense. Well, congrats on your growth, and congrats on you trying to slow it down a little bit, put some brakes on the rails there. That's great, because I think and with your diversification, if I could speak, that's even better. So kudos to you for recognizing that. That's awesome. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you didn't. You're good.
Okay. So one of the things, so when you think about, it sounds Jayden, Richard, and Abby, you guys are pretty well balanced. It sounds like you're monitoring the cash flow. Richard, I'm pretty sure you never run out of people coming to you. In fact, we need to chat, by the way.
Sure.
But so with that said, though, I interviewed a guest last night in my podcast about a recession, and technically, according to the numbers, we're not in a recession, depending on which numbers you look at. But what, if anything, would you do differently if we did ultimately go into a recession?
That's a great question. I would say, at least in my space and in my industry, I'm not going to call it an official recession, but over 50% of the talent acquisition community has been laid off. There's hiring freezes. Nobody's hiring. Executives are staying where they are because they're scared. So they don't need, unless there's a backfill, to do that. So there's been kind of a recession for our industry specifically. And that's why I try to diversify, and I've expanded the term technology to include things like healthcare technology, green energy technology, things that stay a little bit more stable. So when some areas of the business take a hit, we can go toward other more stable areas and industries, but still within our area of expertise.
So food for thought, healthcare is always an industry that's looking for folks, and then the aerospace industry in this area too. Now, within the aerospace industry, pick your battles there, because it's going to vary depending on who's doing what. But so that might be something, kind of food for thought to think about for the future, if that's something that's within your sweet spot. So
that's kind of what I was just saying, is that's why I expanded to healthcare technology. I used to recruit for all aerospace and defense across the nation, back before I owned this company. So we do space tech, but it's aerospace and defense. I just threw the tech word on the end to make it count.
That works.
Website that way. Yeah, I was like, I need to somehow make this count. Yeah. But yeah, so it is one thing. I go toward the more stable areas, but the money that I see the most of and the need I see the most of is in that technology, AI, enterprise, SaaS, semiconductors, which can sometimes feed into defense. But then, of course, that's where you see those really big cycles according to the market. And so when those cycles start to be more of a downturn, I can focus on those other tech areas outside of classic technology.
That makes sense. Which one's growing quicker, AI or cybersecurity? Or is it about the same?
For me, AI.
AI. Okay.
There's a lot of hype around AI. So there's a lot of startups around AI. And I don't work with anything below Series A. I got to pay my team and I can't accept equity.
Makes sense.
Got to do that. But yeah, the startups that are popping up in the AI space are huge. And so that's a really great one for me, especially in executive searches. They need to fill those leadership gaps and round out their executive teams. So that's been a good one.
Great. Awesome. Well, one of the questions I've got here is retention. So when you think about retaining the team members, what are some of the strategies that each of you use? And Abby, I don't know if you're struggling to find, qualified folks that can do the work in the trades, but when you think about retention, what are some of the strategies that each of you use to retain those great team members?
Yeah, I'd say for us at least, you want to give those those intangibles. So the stuff that, the W-2 and the wages are great, but it's, what kind of environment do you have when you come to work? And, are you going out and doing other things like team building and whatnot? And, how can we compensate people without necessarily paying all those payroll taxes and stuff along those lines and that kind of good stuff. So
That
that's
makes
what we
sense.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this question. Since I do human capital consulting, I consult on this a lot. Retention is one of my favorite things. But I mean, there's so many ways, right? There's internal and extrinsic rewards that you can use to motivate and retain employees. I like to focus a lot on culture and transparency, beliefs and boundary systems through being mission and vision value driven. But then also laying clear boundaries, saying, hey, here's what we are not going to do, business we're not going to go after. That really allows you as a leader to feel comfortable giving autonomy to your people because they know exactly what we stand for and believe in, what they can do, and exactly what they can't do. And then giving them that autonomy to be kind of their own business owner within your company. And then, of course, incentivizing through rewards and things like that. And the combination of all of those is a fun puzzle that I love to play with organizations.
Love it. Abby, how about you?
I think they definitely nailed it. The culture is the biggest part. So the back end is fairly easy to retain. However, we are union, so it's like this huge disconnect because they are so used to just like being turned over in different companies. So it's something that part I'm working on trying to bring them in more permanently. So that way it's not like they can just buy in and we can bring them in as part of the company culture, but it is a big challenge.
Yeah, I think I know with the tech companies, and Jayden, I know you're very familiar with this, with the layoffs that have happened, and it is a challenge to retain folks. And when I've led teams in the past, and I still do this today, when after I meet with folks, I'll send them a thank you note in the mail. And I know just dropping a thank you note on somebody's desk goes a long way to that recognition. Or of course out here it's Starbucks cards are all over the place, right? If you drink coffee, but no, I think retaining folks today is much harder than what it used to be. I think there is ways through culture. There's ways through, those team building. I got a call from my client Friday morning a few weeks ago. Hey, you want to go hatchet throwing? I'm like, what? And I was like, I appreciate the invite, but I can't make it because it was up north of Everett. And I was like, no, that's an hour and a half for me to get there. So, but there's different ways that you can do that. And then, another client brings lunch in. So there's different things that you can do that is not always, monetarily rewarding, because Jayden, I don't know if you would agree with this, but monetary rewards are fleeting. I mean, they last for a day, two, maybe a week or two. But after that, then it's, you're back to square one. So what other questions do you guys have? All right. So there's no questions. So I guess I'll give you your bonus early. So if you're interested, and Diane's going to drop some links in the chat but if you'd like a 30-day trial for $1, you can either click the QR code. Boy, that makes a lot of sense, Dean. Click the link in the chat or use your phone to scan the QR code, 30 days for $1. Or if you want to connect and have a further conversation, please click the link. But I'll open it up to any further questions. I won't belabor this because everybody's time is precious. So, but if you have no further questions, we will go ahead and wrap up.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
This deal, I'm very interested in it. Would love to work with you guys a little bit closer. However, and in strict confidentiality, my company is looking to potentially get acquired, and I would be building out basically still this, but as a sub company and with different product offering. Is there a way to postpone this deal until I know for sure if that's happening, so that I don't fill it out with all my current information and then have it be a waste because I have a new, number of teams and new tools and resources at my disposal later?
I tell you what, Jayden, for you, I'll do that.
So sweet, Dean. Thank you. I would just hate to waste my time because I really would love to do this and invest in this, but of course it might all be time wasted if this goes through.
No, I understand. And just what I would recommend is I'll drop my email. Or wait, I'll just drop my email in the chat. And then when you're ready, just give me a shout, and then I'll make sure you get the latest link so you can hit that $1. So
awesome. Thank you.
You bet. Abby, any final questions?
No questions right now. I appreciate the chat. It was interesting to get to know you a little bit more. So,
likewise.
yeah, thank you.
If you want to learn something more interesting, schedule 30 minutes and I'll tell you about the ship I sunk.
Oh, good.
On purpose. No. All right. Well, I'll let everybody get some time back themselves. Enjoy the rest of your day in the Puget Sound area. Diane, I know you're on the East Coast. It's probably beautiful there as well in Maryland. But I greatly appreciate you attending. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
everyone.